In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to knit a sweater, a raglan sweater to be exact, a one-piece raglan sweater with wavy pattern. I'm using this super bulky chenille yarn in milky white and navy blue colors. I use 5 skeins of white and a little bit of blue just for surface crocheting. You will also need 5mm circular needles, 7mm circular needles, a tape measure, stitch markers, scissors, a tapestry needle, 5mm crochet hook, and a little bit of scrap yarn to put sleeve stitches on later. We are going to start making a collar for a top-down raglan sweater, and I'm going to cast on directly on my 5mm needle 46 stitches plus 1 extra stitch to join in the round. In order to measure where to start, I'm going to take my end tail right here and wrap it around 10 times. And this length I'm going to multiply by 5. So 2, and then here's 3, 4, and then 5. So here's the end, and I'm going to start casting on from this point. I'm going to insert my 2 fingers and hold it like this, and then I'm going to take my needle and start casting on. And now you can see on the needle we have 2 hoops right here, and they're called stitches. So we have 2 stitches. Continue casting on like this, and here's our 3rd stitch. Here's our 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9, and we have to cast on 46 plus 1 stitches. So just continue working your casting on like this. And then I'll meet you in the end of the row when I'll have 47 stitches on my needle. I've casted on 47 stitches on my needle, and make sure to count all of them before joining in the round. Here's my short end tail right here, and if yours is too long you can cut it off right now. And the length is not important, it's just a preference. At this point it is super important to make sure that our work is not twisted. So you can see all the stitches are laying on the inside. Now I'm going to take about 6 stitches, or any number actually, and I'm going to put them on my needle like this. And I'm also going to make sure that the stitches are still laying on the inside. And now we're going to start joining in the round. I'm going to take my working yarn, and I'm going to use my right needle and take my first stitch right here. And here's our last stitch. I'm going to take it using my left needle and drop it like this, and then pull the thread. And then I'm going to take this stitch and put it on my left needle, and yay, we've joined in the round. So this short tail right here is always gonna be an indicator where our round starts, but I would suggest using a stitch marker also. So you just put it on your right needle, and you'll know that here's the beginning of our row. Now we're going to start making a 1x1 rib. It's basically a knit 1 and purl 1. I'm going to hold my working yarn like this. So we're going to start making a knit stitch. Here's our first stitch right here. I'm going to insert my needle and then yarn over and then take it out. We've made our first knit stitch. Now we're going to make a purl stitch. So the purl stitch, we're going to hold our yarn facing us, and I'm going to insert my needle right here and then yarn over like this and pull it right here. Now I'm going to make a knit stitch. So my working yarn is going to face the back of my work, and I'm going to insert my needle into the stitch, yarn over, and then take it out. And now I'm going to make a purl stitch. I'm inserting my needle, yarn over, and then take it out. And now it's knit stitch, so our working yarn is facing the back of our work, and I'm going to insert my needle like this and just make a knit stitch. After a knit stitch, we're making a purl stitch. So basically we're just making knit one and purl one, and that's basically a 1x1 rib. Now I don't have any stitches on my left needle, so I'm going to take the next portion of the stitches. You can take any number that you want, but don't take too much. And I'm going to put them on my needle like this, and I'm going to take my working yarn. So I stopped at making a purl stitch, so now I'm going to make a knit stitch. The yarn is facing the back of my work, and I'm going to insert my needle and make a knit stitch. The next one is a purl stitch. So we're just making a knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one till the end of the row. And since we have on our needles 46 stitches, we'll finish by making the last stitch. It's gonna be a purl stitch, because 46 is an even number and our pattern is knit one and purl one. And anytime you're out of stitches on your needle, you're just going to take your next portion of the stitches and put it on your needle, and just continue working till the end of the row, and I'll meet you right here. Here I am at the end of my row. Here's my stitch marker, and as you can see, our work is not twisted. And then I'm going to take my yarn and make the last purl stitch. So the yarn is facing me, and I'm going to insert my needle and take it out. And here's my stitch marker. I'm going to put it on my right needle. And now we're going to start making the second round, and we're going to start by making a knit stitch. So just make it as usual, and you can see that the second round is much easier than the first one. So if you're on the first one, don't be discouraged. Just continue making knit one, purl one, knit one, and purl one. And the second round is just the same, knit one and purl one until the end of the row. And the third round is gonna be also the same. So we're always gonna start our rounds with the knit stitch and finish our round with a purl stitch. Also, I wanted to show you guys that we are always going to purl where we purled in the previous row, and we're always gonna knit where we knitted in the previous row. So here you can see it's a purl stitch, and I'm going to purl right here. And the next one is a knit stitch. Visually, it's quite hard to differentiate knit stitches and purl stitches when you're on the first round, but you can see here that I've made my second round. The knit stitches, they have these little V's right here, and the purl stitches, they have these little beads. I don't know, they kind of remind me of rice. I guess because the color is white. So just continue making your one by one rib. I'm currently in the end of my row and I'm going to make my last purl stitch, and then I'll take my stitch marker and put it on my right needle and start making my knit stitch. And by that I've started my next round. If at any point you're confused what stitch to make next, don't you worry, I've got two methods for you. The first one is based on counting. So for example, I don't know what stitch to make next here, and I'm going to count from my stitch marker what is the number of this stitch. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And it's an odd number, that means that I'm going to make a knit stitch. If it's an even number, you're going to make a purl stitch. So if you don't feel like counting, that's totally fine. I have the second method for you, and it's based on a visual cue. As I told you before, you can see the knit stitch, it has little V's right here. And the purl stitch, you can see the rice grains here. So that's all the life hacks I've got for you at this point. So I'm just going to work my rib one by one, and I'm going to show you later where I stopped. I've made a certain number of rows, and here's my short tail and stitch marker that shows me that I finished my row. Now I'm going to measure. It is 8 cm in length or 3.15 inches. You can make any other length that you desire, but be mindful that you're going to fold it in a half. So now we're going to join our first row with the last row. So now I'm just going to fold my color in a half like this. And we're going to join the first and last row. Also, we're going to switch to 7mm needles. So this stitch is the first one of the next row. I put on the stitch marker right here so that you guys can see where is the beginning of the next row. And I'm going to take my 7mm needle and insert into that stitch. Then I'm going to find in the first round right here that here's our short tail, and after this you can see next to it the row of rice grains, purl stitches. We're going to insert our 7mm needle into that purl stitch. And now you're going to take your working yarn and make a knit stitch. Now we're just going to make only knit stitches. So the next purl stitch, we are inserting our needle like we're going to make a knit stitch. So our yarn is facing the back of our work. Next we're going to find the first row right here. You can see the V round or knit round. You're going to insert your 7mm needle into that stitch and make a knit stitch. Next it's a knit stitch, so just insert your needle and then find on the other side a row of purl stitches and just insert it right here and make a knit stitch. The next stitch is a purl stitch, but we only knit on this row, so just insert your needle like this, and on the other side you should find a row of knit stitches, little V's right here. So just insert your needle into that stitch. So now we have 2 stitches on our needle and pull through all of them. So we are joining our first and last round. The next one is a knit stitch, so we're just inserting our needle, and on the other side we can see purl stitches. So just put your needle into that purl stitch and make a knit stitch to join all of them together. And here's our purl stitch. Insert your needle like this, and on the other side you should find a knit row. Here it is with the V's, and just put your needle like this and join it. I know this round is pretty hard, but believe me, it's the hardest part. It's gonna be worth it. And the last one right here on my left needle is a knit stitch. I'm going to insert it like this, and on the other side I should find a purl row right here, rice grains, and I'm going to just insert it like this and join it. And this is how the joining should look like on the front and on the back. Now that I don't have the stitches on my left needle, and I'm going to take my next portion. If you see in front of you a purl row, that means that you're going to join on the back a knit row. So here I can see it's a purl stitch. I'm inserting my needle like I'm going to knit, and I'm going to find on the back of my work, you can see it's a knit row with the little V's, and I have to insert my needle into that V stitch. And the next one is a knit stitch, so on the back we should see a purl stitch. Here it is. And the next one is purl stitch, so on the back we should find a knit stitch. From this point, continue joining your first and last row, and I'll meet you in the end of this row. I'm on the finishing line of joining my first and last round of the collar, and I've got only 4 stitches on my 5mm needle left. And I wanted to quickly show you guys that if you follow the lines, they have to match. For example, here's the knit row. If you follow until the end, on the other side you'll see the knit row. And if you see this is the purl row, if you follow it, on the back you'll see the purl row. So now we've got only 4 stitches left. Here's the knit stitch. I'm inserting my needle and finding on the other side the purl stitch. Here's the purl round. It is so hard to see, but here it is. Just bear with me. We're on the finishing line. We have to not give up. And the next one is a purl stitch. So on the other side, here's the knit row. Next one is a knit, and we're going to find the purl row right here. And the last stitch of our row is a purl stitch, the 46th stitch, and we should find a knit row. Here's how our collar should look like right now. At this point we're not gonna use 5mm needles anymore, so just put them aside. And now you're going to take a portion of stitches and put it on your left needle. And here's the beginning of our row, and we can find our short tail right here that indicates that, but also we're going to put a stitch marker. Okay, so before putting the stitch markers, I wanted to quickly explain to you guys how the pattern works. So we have 46 stitches on our needles. We've just finished making our collar, and now we have to separate these stitches into different sections, such as the sleeves and front and back panel. So on the sleeves we'll have 7 stitches each, and on the front and back panels we'll have 14 stitches in each side. These 4 marks here are raglan lines. We'll have 1 stitch in each of these lines, and we're going to make an increase in every other row near these raglan lines. So we're going to make an increase before a raglan line and after, and the same right here, before and after, and you guessed it, before and after. At this point you have to prepare 8 stitch markers. So now you have to prepare 8 stitch markers where one of them is different from others. So 1 different from others and 7 stitch markers. So now we're ready to make our first knit all around without increases, where we'll put on our stitch markers. I'm currently in the beginning of my row, and the indication of that is this short tail right here. And my first stitch is going to be a knit stitch. Now take your stitch marker that is different from the other ones, and we're going to use it to mark the beginning of the round, and I'm placing it on my right needle. Now take your working yarn, and we're going to make knit 1. And now take your stitch marker and place it on your right needle. So here we've made our first raglan line. It is located right here. And now we're going to work counterclockwise, so we're going to make 7 knit stitches for the sleeves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. So here's my future sleeve. I'm taking my next stitch marker and placing on my right needle. And now I'm going to make knit 1. So this is a raglan line, and I'm taking my next stitch marker and placing on my right needle. And now we're going to make our front or back panel, and it is 14 stitches. So make knit 14. So I've made 10 knit stitches in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 stitches, and I'm placing my next stitch marker on my right needle. So we finished this part right here, and we're moving on to our next raglan line. So I'm making knit 1, and I'm placing my next stitch marker right here. And now we're going to move on making our another sleeve and just knit 7. Here are my 7 stitches. After that I'm taking my next stitch marker and placing on my right needle, and I'm going to make a raglan line. So just knit 1 and take your last stitch marker right here. And now we're out of stitch markers, and we can count from this point to the end of the row. So here's our marker that is different from the other markers, and it should be 14 stitches. So let's count them together. 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14. So we did it right, you guys. And now just continue making 14 stitches. I'm just gonna take my next portion of the stitches and put it on my left needle and work my 14 knit stitches until the end of the row. So now I'm getting to the end of my row, and I'm making my final 14th knit stitch. And here's the stitch marker that shows me the beginning of the next row. So now we're ready to make our second round, which is a round of increases. And we're going to make our first increase before the stitch marker. So we have to pick up a stitch between these 2 stitches. It's in this space right here. And we're going to make one right. So I'm placing this stitch that I picked up from this space to my left needle. And you can see that it is facing right side. So it has these 2 sides right here. And the left one is facing us. And the right one is on the back of our work. So that means that the stitch is facing right. And now we're going to make a knit 1 with this stitch. And then I'm taking my stitch marker and putting on my right needle. Next we're just making knit 1. It is our raglan line, and we're never changing that. And I'm placing my stitch marker on my right needle. Now we're ready to make our second increase near the raglan line, and we have to make one left. So we have to pick up a stitch in this space right here, and I'm putting on my left needle like this. So in this case you can see that the stitch is facing left, so it has 2 sides right here. You can see here's the right one and here's the left, and the left one is on the back of our work. So make a knit stitch. And now we're going to just knit until our next stitch marker. Now we're ready to make our next increase, which is make one right. Here's the raglan line, so pick up a stitch and put it on your left needle. Insert your needle into this side of the stitch right here and make one. Put your stitch marker on your right needle, and here's the raglan line. We're just making knit stitch and placing next stitch marker. Now we're going to make one left, so pick up a stitch like this and put it on your left needle, and it is going to face left, and just make a knit stitch. And now we're going to knit until the next stitch marker. So here's my next stitch marker with this raglan line, and that means that I'm going to make one right. So I'm picking up my stitch and placing it like this, and I'm just trying to insert my needle in this stitch right here and make one. Putting on my stitch marker, and here's my raglan line, just knit one, the next stitch marker, and now we have to pick up a stitch and make one left. And now just continue knitting until the next stitch marker. So here's the raglan line. So before the raglan line, we're always making one right. So we're placing like here. Here it is. And wrap it around. Make a knit stitch. And here's our raglan line, we're just going to knit. And now I'm placing my next stitch marker, and now we're making one left. Pick up a stitch just like that and make a knit one. And now we're just making knit stitches until the next stitch marker. So at this point we've made all of our increases. Here are our 4 raglan lines, and now just make knit stitches until the end of the row, and I'll meet you right here. So I've made it to the end of my second round, and here should be my last stitch of this round. But before we continue, I would want to show you guys how we can check if we did all the increases correctly. So here I wrote this little binary code where we made our first round without increases, so I put 0 on it. And the second round, number 1, just means that we made an increase. So this is an increase round. And then I wrote 9 and 16. That means that on the sleeves we've had 7 stitches before, and after we've made increases we should have 9 stitches. And on the front and back panel, before we've had 14 stitches, and now after increase we'll have 16 stitches. So now we can check it all together. So here's our stitch marker that shows the beginning of our row. So here's the section of the sleeves. So instead of 7 stitches it has to have 9. So let's count them together. Here's the stitch marker, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And here's our raglan line. After that it should be a front or back panel. So we have to have, instead of 14, 16 stitches. So let's count them together. After this raglan line, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And here's our next raglan line. Here we have to have 9 stitches. So let's count them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And here's our raglan line. And this is the last section. We have to have 16 stitches. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, and 16. So we've made all the increases correctly. And now we're ready to finish this row. So I'm making my last knit stitch of my second row, and I'm placing my marker on the right needle, and I'm starting my third row. Just knit all without the increases. So this row is pretty relaxing, and we don't have to worry and make any of the increases. Just knit in all of the stitches, and don't forget to place the marker correctly. So here it is. The raglan line is always just 1 stitch right here, one raglan line, and just continue knitting all this round. Here's my stitch marker I'm placing on my right needle and just knitting. So this row I'm going to just knit all of the stitches, and I'm going to meet you in the end of the round, so near this stitch marker right here. So I'm getting to the end of my third row, just knitting all of these stitches, and here's my last stitch. And now we're ready to start our fourth row of increase. So I wrote it down right here, our fourth row, and I wrote 1, meaning that we'll have an increase row, and we'll have 11 stitches on our sleeves and 18 on our front and back panel. So now let's start making an increase. Here's our raglan line, so we have to make one right. I'm taking a stitch, put the needle in this side of the stitch, right here, and then placing my marker, knitting 1, placing my marker on my right needle, and now I have to pick up a stitch and make one left. Right here, here's our picked up stitch, and just make a knit stitch. Now we're just knitting until the next stitch marker. Here's our next stitch marker, and now we have to make one right. So pick up a stitch right here, and now we have to knit in that stitch, in that front loop right here, and then placing my marker and knitting my raglan line and placing my marker. And now we have to make one left, so pick up a stitch and put it on left needle and make a knit stitch. So just continue knitting until the next stitch marker. Here's my stitch marker, so I'm making my knit stitch, and before the marker we have to make one right. So pick up a stitch and place it so it is facing the right side, and now make a knit stitch. Then place your marker, make your raglan line and put your stitch marker, and now we have to make one left right here, and I'm placing on my left needle and it is facing left side. So here's my next stitch marker. I'm making one right, holding with my finger. Here's our raglan line, it's always the same right now, and make one left. So we're always making one right before the stitch marker, and we're making one left after the stitch marker. And now I'll knit until the end of the row, and I'll meet you right there. So I'm getting to the end of my fourth row, and I wanted to remind you guys to check the number of stitches. So now we have to have 11 stitches on our sleeves and 18 stitches on our front and back panel. So just don't forget to count them, so to make sure that you did this round correctly. And I've counted mine and it is correct. After that, you're going to start the next round, and I would suggest to you to write that down somewhere on your paper or on your phone as a note, or when you finish a row you can tick it. And now I'm just going to finish my fourth row. Here's the last stitch of my fourth row, and now we're going to start our fifth row of no increases. So I'm just placing carefully my marker on my right needle and just going to knit all round. So at this point I think you can see that we are making increases in every other round. So we've made an increase in the second round and then in the fourth, and then we're going to make in the sixth, and so on and so forth. Regarding the increases row, I would highly recommend to write down the number of stitches that has to be on that round and just count it when you finish each of the increase rows, so that you're sure that you made all the increases correctly. Now I've made 13 rows, and I wanted to show you guys how the raglan lines look like. So here are these two lines you can see, and here we made our increases near the raglan line, and the same thing is on the other side. you have two of the raglan lines right here and here. So I finished knitting my 37th row. Here's a stitch marker that shows me the next 38th row, and I wanted to quickly measure for you guys my raglan line. I've laid my work flat and without stretching. I'm going to measure it for you guys. So it is 23 centimeters or 9.055 inches. At this point I have on my sleeves 43 stitches on each of the sleeves, and I have 50 stitches on my front and back panel. So here's the stitch marker on my right side of the needle, and I'm just going to knit all this round without the increases. So at the end we'll have 43 stitches on the sleeves and 50 stitches on front and back panel. So I finished making my 38th row without the increases, and now I have 43 stitches on my sleeves and 50 stitches on my front and back panel. And the reason why I did it without the increases is because I was satisfied with that number, but I wanted to make my raglan line just a little bit longer. So now I'm just gonna measure one more time, and it is now 24 centimeters. And now we're ready to make our back panel. As you can see, in a lot of shirts or sweaters, there is a height difference between the front and back panel, and you can clearly see it right here. And now we're going to make the same thing on our raglan sweater. So I'm currently near the beginning of the next round, which is 39th, and I'm not gonna continue knitting this round. I'm just going to take my stitch marker on my right needle and knit this raglan stitch right here. And now we're going to turn our work. So at this point you can take off your stitch marker and start purling this side. The first stitch, I'm just going to take it on my right needle and take this stitch marker out, and the next stitch I'm going to purl. And just purl in every stitch. From now on, continue working your purl stitches, and I'll meet you near the next stitch marker right here. So I've made it to the end of my row, and I'm just going to purl this stitch, take off my stitch marker and purl this last stitch. And now I'm going to turn my work, and this is going to be a knit row. So I'm taking off my needles, and the first stitch I'm just going to take it like this. So the first stitch we're never knitting or purling, we're just taking off our needle and putting on our right needle. And next just knit all this row, and I'll meet you in the end of the row, which is here near the raglan line. So here I am near the raglan line, here it is, and I've got my 4 stitches left, and I'm going to knit these last 3 stitches, and the last stitch I'm going to purl just like that. And now just turn your work, and we're ready to make our next row, which is a purl row. So this stitch, just take it to your right needle and start purling just like that. So in the beginning of the row we're always taking off our first stitch and put it on our right needle, and the last stitch you're always purl the last stitch, even if it's a knitting row. So from this point continue working your purl stitches until the end of the row where the raglan line is, and then turn your work and start making the knit row. Don't forget to take off your first stitch on your right needle as I showed you before, and just knit until the end of the row, which is the next raglan line right here. And don't forget to make the last stitch as a purl stitch, even if it's a knit round. And then turn your work and start making your purl row. And in the beginning don't forget to take off your first stitch onto your right needle. So by making these rows, we're going to make our back panel longer than our front panel. And in the next clip, I'm going to show you guys where to stop. I've made 6 rows in total for my back panel and stopped at a knit row. And it is 6 centimeters or 2.36 inches. Now we are ready to take off all of the stitches of our left sleeve and join back and front panel. Here's our front panel. We are going to take our tapestry needle and take off our stitches on the sleeve to a piece of yarn with a different color. So just use your tapestry needle to slip these stitches off, like so. And now I'm ready to take off the next portion. So here we are near the marker. We are going to take these 3 stitches off. And that's about it, and just make a double knot and then cut off your yarn. So here's our sleeve, and now we are ready to join our back and front panel. But first we need to cast on 4 stitches for our underarm. We are going to make backwards loop. Just repeat after me. Here's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Make sure that these loops are tight and not loose. And now we're going to continue knitting our front panel. And take off your stitch marker and continue knitting your front panel until the next stitch marker. I'm currently near the end of my front panel, and here's my raglan line. So I'm making just knit stitches, taking off my stitch marker, and I'm taking this raglan line to the front panel. So now we are ready to take off all of the stitches of our left sleeve. So here's my tapestry needle with my piece of a scrap yarn, and now we are going to make the same thing as we made for our right sleeve. Just slip off all of the stitches of our sleeve. And here I am near the end of my sleeve. I'm just going to take off these last 2 stitches. Here they are, and we're ready to make our double knot. And then cut off your ends. So here's our left sleeve, and now we're going to cast on 4 stitches on our right needle. So just turn it like this. Here's our first, second, third and fourth stitch. And now we're ready to join our front and back panels. And just knit all. So from this point, continue working your knit stitches on the back panel, and then I'll meet you right here where we started making our 4 cast on stitches. So I'm currently near the end of my back panel, and I'm going to knit these last stitches of my back panel, and here's the last stitch. And now we can see on our left needle 4 of our casted on stitches. Before we knit them, we're going to put 1 stitch marker right here, so that now we know where's the beginning of our row. And now we're going to knit 4 of these stitches. They can be a little bit tight, but it is a good sign. Make sure that they are not loose. Here we have it, and now just continue knitting. From this point, just continue working your knit stitches on the front panel, and I will meet you near the next sleeve right here. Now I have 3 stitches left of my front panel. I'm just going to knit through all of them. And here are my 4 casted on stitches. We're going to knit them also. Okay, so the awkward part is done, and now we have 2 of the armholes. First armhole and the second one. So now we've joined our front and back panel here in the round, and we only have 1 stitch marker that shows us the beginning of the round. And also we have the height difference between the back panel and the front one. And now just continue working your knitting rows until your desired length. So I've worked some knitting rounds and decided to stop at this point, and it is 35 centimeters or 13.78 inches. Click here to see the second part of the tutorial. We are going to do a decrease in the body of the sweater, puffy sleeves, and last but definitely not least, we are going to surface crochet some wavy lines.